Hello and welcome to the Art Business Murals Podcast. And I am your host, Sarah Scully. And as per usual, there is background noise. That is the 3D printer going bonkers. And also, my husband came down and just put the washing on. And because we're still building our laundry, the washing machine is in my studio. So if there is background noise, um, you know what's going on. Although I must say, I've been saying there's been background noise in these podcast episodes for like the last 4 months since the studio's being built, and I don't think you can actually hear anything. But I'm just letting you know just in case. So today we're talking about one of the biggest, the most emotional, most avoided topics in the art world, and that is pricing. How do artists decide what to charge? Because let's be honest, most artists are not sitting down with spreadsheets and financial forecasting. Most artists are sitting there thinking, what feels fair? What won't scare people away? What are other artists charging? What would I pay? And that is exactly why so many super talented artists are exhausted, underpaid, and questioning whether they can actually do this career full time. So today, I want to walk you through a practical framework for pricing your artwork, your murals, your commissions, your prints, and your workshops. And I also want to talk about the emotional side of pricing, because that is where the real issue lies. And you all know that my life's mission is to smash the starving artist stereotype, because I am not starving and I am an artist. And I know there are many of you out there who are thriving as artists. We are abundant in work and in money. So let's do this. The three biggest pricing mistakes. So the first mistake I see artists making is pricing based on feeling. What feels fair? What feels reasonable? I don't want to be greedy. Pricing's not about what feels fair. Pricing is about what makes your business sustainable. The second mistake is pricing based on other artists. Now, I'm going to start by saying research is fine. Research what other artists are doing. Research what artists who have a similar background as you, education, have been in the industry. That's okay. But still, you might see someone charging $200 for a commission and think, oh, I should charge that. But you don't know their experience level, their costs, whether they're profitable, whether they're burning out in the background, whether they're doing this as a hobby. These are all things that you need to know before you start judging other people's pricing. So copying someone else's pricing without knowing their numbers is like copying someone else's grocery bill and hoping that it feeds your family as well. The third mistake is forgetting that you're running a business. You're just not charging for paint on canvas. That's not the only thing you're charging for. You're also charging for your experience, your training, your creative brain, your design time, your emails, your quoting, bookkeeping, marketing, materials, tax, super. If you don't factor these things in to your pricing, you are literally paying to work. So let's look at a practical pricing framework. Step one, decide on what you actually want to earn, not what feels realistic, not what you earned last year. What do you want to earn? If you want to earn $80,000 per year from your art business, that's roughly around, okay, and trust me, I had to write all these numbers down and do the maths for it, and I am paranoid. I've messed up the maths pretty severely. So let's just do some estimates in case my maths is not correct. It is not my strong point. So if you want $80,000 per year, that is about $6,600 per month. Now let's work backwards from that. How many murals do you realistically want to paint? How many commissions do you want to paint? How many workshops? If you only want to paint one mural per month, that mural cannot be an $800 mural. It has to reflect your income goals. When you reverse engineer your pricing from your life, everything changes. So let's look at things like $80,000 per year, good wage, $6,600 per month. That could mean that you need to paint, say, two medium-sized murals, small to medium-sized murals to get that. That seems doable if you're pricing yourself correctly on murals. Or it could mean you don't want to do murals, that's fine. You're really great at workshops, and let's say you make $1,200 profit on your workshops. So that would mean that you would need to run 6 workshops every month to make that income. Okay, you don't want to do workshops, you don't want to do murals, just want to sell artworks. So that could mean that you have to sell per month 2 extra large artworks at $3,300 each. That's profit, by the way. That's not including the cost of the canvas, the paints, the tax, all that kind of stuff. So 2, 3+ grand artworks a month. That's not doable. Or if you're like, I don't paint large ones, I'd rather sell my smaller artworks. So let's say you're smelling. Let's say you are selling smaller artworks. So they're like small. And you're selling them at, let's say, $300 per artwork. For you to make an $80,000 per year income, which is $6,600 per month, you would need to be selling 22 of your $300 artworks per month. I did not mathematically work out what that is per year, but it's a buttload of paintings per year. And I don't know about you, but I do not have that many ideas for paintings in a year, let alone having to sell them. So you don't necessarily sell every artwork that you paint. You have to paint more and then you sell some of what you paint, unless you're like amazing. Some artists do, I guess. But anyways, that's a buttload of paintings. So that means you need to start looking at your smaller artwork pricing. If you want to be making that 80,000 per year, you can't be selling your artworks for $300 each, because that is an insane amount of work to do. So step 2, know your costs. Your direct costs, which are materials, printing, framing, assistance, and then don't forget your indirect costs. So things like studio rent, insurance, website. Holy guacamole, my website is expensive, $600 per year. But I guarantee you, and I can prove it with my expenses, that because of my website, I make a hell of a lot more money than $600 per year. So it definitely pays for itself a millionfold. Software, yeah, holy dooly. Adobe is getting expensive. Accountant, marketing, equipment, all that kind of stuff, they're all indirect costs. So if your mural costs $800 in materials and you charge $1,200, that does not mean that you made $1,200. You made $400 before tax, before super, before paying yourself. That will certainly make for a very resentful mural artist over time, no doubt. Artists consistently underestimate all of this. Step 3, pay yourself properly for your time. And this is where it gets really uncomfortable. You need to choose an hourly rate that reflects a skilled professional. If you are charging yourself out at $25 an hour, but a plumber charges themselves out at $120 an hour, there is a mindset issue there. Now, don't get me wrong, plumbers are very hardworking, and there is no way on God's green earth that I would want to be doing what they do and like this is my experience. The plumber came to our house not too long ago because they're building a bathroom as part of the studio so that I can run workshops here. And the plumber says, okay, cool. Can you just not flush the toilets for like the next half an hour? And especially don't flush them if you're doing number 2. I thought in my head, okay, yeah, this is a job I would never want, to accidentally get hit by a turd when I was doing my job. Like, at least as artists, I don't think that's ever a chance of happening, is getting hit by a poop while we're working. Although never say never. So, oh, get off track, Sarah. Holy dooly. You are not charging for your labor, you're charging for your expertise. And remember, you are not charging just for painting time. You are also charging for design time, for consultation, travel, prep, setup, pack down, admin. All of that counts. Okay, step 4, add profit. Profit is not greed. Profit is stability. Profit is growth. Profit is being able to say no. Profit is not panicking when your car breaks down. If there is no profit margin, you do not have a business. You have a very expensive hobby. Now, I'm going to completely sidetrack right now, still talking about money, but this is something that I have done, and I encouraged my son to do it very recently. So I can't even remember what it's for. I think it was when we were buying our house, and then a whole ton of money got transferred into my account, and then it automatically had to get transferred straight out of my account. But it was like a massive amount of money, like more money than I've ever seen in my bank account. So the money got transferred in, and I was like, oh, I'm like super rich. And then it automatically got transferred straight out. But when it got transferred in, I took a screenshot and I was like, yes, I'm going to manifest this amount of money just sitting in my bank account. It's just going to sit there and I'm just going to be rich, full stop. And so that goes on my vision board now, is this screenshot of my bank account with all this money in it. So last week I set up a bank account for my son. So he's old enough now to have like a grown-up bank account. And so we went down to Commonwealth Bank, which is where I have my business account, and also 500,000 other accounts. My financial advisor says he's never seen anyone with so many bank accounts, but they're all like, they don't cost me anything. I just like to know where my money's going. And I save for lots of things. So I have like all these different savings account for like savings account for a trip to Europe, savings account for a trip to Japan, savings account for my son's very expensive school, like all these things. Anyways, it works. So we went down and we set up my son's bank account, and I had already set an account for him and I didn't realize. So we just had to like log in and set up a password for him so he could get access to it, and then set up his own keycard account. And so we did all of that, and he logged in. And when he logged in, it said down the bottom like $9,000. And I was like, what the hell? How's the $9,000 in my kid's account? Anyways, turns out I'd set up an account for him and then realized he wasn't using it. And then I decided to use it for my own savings for a holiday that we've been saving for forever. Uh, and then when he opened up, got access to his account, there's all that money I'd saved right there. And I was like, oh my God, don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it. So I just set up another account to move it out of his so he couldn't touch it. But I said the same thing to him. I was like, he was like, oh my God, Mum, this is the most amount of money I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, mate, screenshot it before I move it out. And he was so excited. So he did the same thing. I got him to screenshot his bank account so that he can now manifest that amount of money in his bank account that he's saved himself, not that his parents have saved for a holiday that we're taking straight back off him. Okay, I digress. Okay, so step 4, add profit. Well, we talked about that. We're adding profit. So let's talk about specific scenarios. Commissions. Custom work should always cost more than ready-made work. And why? Because it requires way more communication. It requires revisions. It's emotionally a lot heavier, and it can't be resold. So always take a deposit, always define how many revisions are included, and always set boundaries around timelines. So whenever I do commissions, often they're the longest projects I will work on. So unless there's like a really tight deadline, like a Christmas gift deadline or something like that, generally commissions take me 3 to 6 months. It takes a lot of my energy to be painting these artworks, because I don't know about you, but when I'm painting something for someone, I always think about them the whole time, and I find that really emotionally draining. I always allow 3 rounds of changes for my commissions. I really enjoy working collaboratively with my clients. I feel very uncomfortable if I send them a proof and they're like, yep, approved, let's do it. And I'm like, oh, are you sure you don't want to change something? You sure about the colors? So I like to kind of back and forth a little bit. Sometimes I do have commissions that are a lot more sensitive and quite emotionally driven. With those ones, I don't have a max, like a max amount of changes. Those I just kind of go with the flow, which I know is not ideal, but it's worked with me in the past. And because these are high emotions around these commissions, I don't want to be really restrictive, and I haven't shot myself in the foot yet. Now that I've said that, I'm working on one now. Maybe I will shoot myself in the foot now, but let's just see. Let's talk about prints. So cheap prints can actually hurt your branding position. I know I talk a lot about drop shipping. If that works with your brand, go for it. But if you're selling limited edition, high quality prints, your pricing should reflect that. If you're selling open edition prints, your pricing should reflect that. You need to calculate printing costs, packaging, shipping materials. That is the bit that I always forget to add in, shipping materials. And you have to use so much bubble wrap and so much packaging. Anyways, thinking about your time as well. And then also like platform fees. So if you're selling through Blue Thumb, I think that they just increased their commissions again, and a lot of people are not very happy. But don't forget to add in their commission price. Or if you're selling it on your website, don't forget to add that into the price. And then putting your build margin on top. So if you're only making $10 per print, you need to sell a lot of prints to survive. So you need to rethink your pricing there. Okay, let's talk about workshops. Artists can sometimes massively undercharge on workshops. You're not just charging for the 2 hours of teaching time. You are also charging for planning, preparation, materials, setup, cleanup, your expertise, your energy. And the one thing that takes the most amount of time when I run workshops is your marketing. Teaching is a skill. Do not price it like it's a casual favor. Also, set up boundaries around your minimum number of participants. So if you're promoting a workshop, you're charging 120 per ticket, you like to charge out your time at 120 per hour, fantastic, it's a 2-hour workshop. You are not going to sell one ticket and run the workshop. That is not financially viable. You need to set up a minimum. Maybe your minimum is 4 people per workshop. And that is the absolute minimum that you run that workshop at. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the emotional side of pricing. Fear. Fear of someone saying, that's expensive. Fear of losing the client, fear of being judged, fear of outgrowing your old audience. Here's the truth. When you raise your prices, some people will say no. That's normal. But the right clients will always say yes. And confidence doesn't come before you raise your prices. Confidence comes after you raise them and realize the world has not collapsed and you still have work coming in. Also, expensive is relative. A $3,000 mural might be expensive to one person and completely reasonable to a business with a $5,000 marketing budget. You are not responsible for being affordable to everyone. Now, again, I'm going to digress slightly with a personal story. A couple of years ago, I raised my graphic design hourly rate prices. I regularly check in on my prices and raise them a little bit depending on market and all that kind of stuff. So this time I was raising up my hourly rate, and I had about 5 graphic design clients that I was doing regular work for. So I had to email out all of them and say, look, I'm going to increase my prices on this date and will now be charging this amount per hour. And I was petrified. I have done over 20 years in the industry as a graphic designer. I am very good at what I do. I teach graphic designers. I am efficient, I am intelligent, I understand target market, I understand branding and style, and I'm damn good. But I was still pooping my pants sending out these emails. But I did it anyway because, business. And you know what happened? Nothing happened. No one dumped me. All that happened is I got an email back from one of those clients saying, it's about time, you deserve more. And I was like, huh, who knew? So maybe I should raise my prices again soon. So let's talk about boundaries and scripts. Let me give you some phrases that you can use to set your boundaries, to be clear and to the point. Because I don't know about you, but if I'm trying to be stern with a strong boundary, I very much over-explain all the time. Let's not do that. So here's one. Thank you for your interest. My mural pricing starts at such and such per square meter. Done. Nothing more. I completely understand if that is outside of your budget. Full stop. I'm not able to offer discounts at this time. Full stop. And then in your head, you can have that argument about, I bet you don't go to Coles and ask for a discount on your groceries. Damn. No, don't do that. Okay, next one. My commission packages begin at da 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 da. Or if you're like me and cannot for the life of you remember what your commission prices are, you can say things like, I'm glad you're interested in my commissions. I will email you through my price list. Notice there is no apology in those sentences. Clear, calm, professional. So if you want a sustainable art career, your pricing has to support your life, not your fear, not your imposter syndrome, not other people's comfort. You're allowed to build a business that pays properly. And if you want deeper support with your pricing, forecasting, income planning, and building a sustainable art business, that is exactly what we do inside the Creative Business Group Coaching Program. And don't forget, if you sign up to the program before the end of March 2026, you get your first month for free. And there is no lock-in plan, so you can jump in. Check it out. Come to one of our fortnightly live group coaching sessions. Check out all the videos, check out all the digital downloads, and then you can jump back out. Or ideally, you can stay and continue moving your business forward. In the group, we look at real numbers, we build real plans, and we help you to stop guessing what you're doing in business. Thank you so much for being here. If this episode helped you, share it with another artist, please, who really needs to hear it. And I will see you next week.